Welcome to We Are Not Here to Tick a Box with David Kane and Debbie Hayes. Episode 15, Working Together.
So, in this episode, we're going to be talking about a very what can be a sensitive topic, in my opinion, or my experience, should I say, around working together. It's a phrase that can often be bandied around. It can be an aspiration, but in reality, are we really working together? Are we working as a team, or in reality, are people working as a group of individuals? So that's what we want to rip the plaster off, isn't it, David?
Well,
we want to expose this subject a little bit. And
well, we've had this second series at the moment. It's been very quotey based and very I won't say pink and fluffy because it's certainly not that, but we've been talking around certain topics. Whereas this is quite hard hitting. Is your business truly working as one? Massive question. And I would use a word that I would put into your intro is in competition with as well.
Yeah.
Are they competing with each other?
And there can be healthy competition.
Yeah.
But ultimately, even within a company, there should be a team of teams. One team cannot work in isolation effectively for great results. Just doesn't work like that. We need every cog to work because every cog is integral to the business as the whole.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. Well, it's like a Formula One driver, isn't it? Whenever you see, I mean, let's be fair. I mean, I'm not a big Formula One fan. Apologies to Formula One fans, the Scale Electrics world and all that. But, in most cases, the driver will always pay tribute to his mechanics because, let's be fair, it's a go-kart. I mean, that's what it is. At the end of the day now, yeah, they have got a level of skill. Of course they have, and of course they put their lives on the line. So I'm not being disparaging, but you get the point. The main work of a Formula One driver is not done on the track; it's done in the garage.
Yeah,
that's where it's done. So you can have the greatest Formula One driver in the world. If he's sat in the wrong car,
yeah, absolutely,
he's not going to become world champion. So, and it's about, but then equally, I remember. I didn't realise this is where I was going to start. None of this is scripted. We always say that. I remember 1992. I used to like Nigel Mansell. Don't know why, just did. As growing up, Red 5. That's probably why, because he had his number was coloured. He was Red 5. And I remember when he won the World Championship in '92, and I remember buying the video, not a DVD. Wow, didn't even stream it. Wow, show me age. And in that video, you could see the impact he had on the mechanic. His knowledge of being a racer for the next amount of years. His driving knowledge, how he supported his team. And and guided them as to how to improve the car, etc. And I think that you can, again, going back to what you say, these two facets of this wider team cannot work in isolation if they want to go and win a constructors or a world championship.
And I think you said a really pinnacle word there: support. So, as an individual, how do you support other team members within your own team? And as a team, how do you support other teams within the business?
Yeah.
So we were just touching earlier about, when a team's successful, they've probably learned through experience some principles that are best practice principles, or I would call them, what are those success habits? What are the behaviors that drive, those good outputs?
Yeah, absolutely. And best practice. We spoke about this. How many businesses truly, share best practice? Truly share it. And
well, maybe it's not the mechanisms, David. There's not the
a lot of times not.
So in actual fact, there's not a practice to share best practice.
No.
There's not the mechanism in place. And so unless somebody proactively puts that in place, then I guess people are heads down, focusing on their own individual goals.
Yeah. Well, and I think that, you know, most meetings, I mean, I think, you know, and again, challenge to the people watching this, you know, what are your meetings? Are they there? How many meetings do you have that discusses outputs? And how many meetings do you have where we share best practice? And I guarantee there's at least one meeting every week that's about outputs. I question how many there is around the inputs. And that for me is critical. And you know, by sharing the best practice, what you're actually doing is making those around you better. And by doing that, it brings out the best in you, because you know that if you're going to share your little nuggets, then you're going to go and have to find some new nuggets if you want to maintain your position as number one, if that's where you currently are. But again, in my experience, you know, very seldom, you know, our best practice sessions held. You know, and I was always a champion of that. You know, I believe in that. You know, I used to always say to my leadership team that, you know, as a manager, you know, it's not about the best performer diluting underperformance from another department. You know, if you want to truly be great in the role that you want to do, then for me, rather than look at the output, look at the variables, look at your people. Because really, you know, I used to work to a 10% rule. That, you know, whatever the outputs are, if you want to show your true mettle as a leader, if you've only got a 10% variance between your best and your developing colleague, that is a reflection on you and your leadership team, because that is very, very difficult to do. So it's about, well, where are we starting from? And a lot of the time, you know, you'd start from a position of like 25, 30% variance, but then you celebrate every time that variance gets smaller and smaller. You're aiming for the 10. What you're doing is you're increasing the strength of your business, because you're no longer reliant on one person. You know, it's now that collective, and I think that's vitally important. So again, you know, there's a challenge. You know, not in a tick box. Are you currently residing over a team where you've got a massive high and a massive low? Well, that's really interesting. And even though we might be coming out at a level that your organization wants you to be at from an output perspective, are you somebody that sits back and goes, I'm ticking that box, I'm doing what I need to do? Or are you going, well, hang on a minute, my challenge isn't this, my challenge is that variance. Because if I can narrow that variance, actually this bar then goes up. That's what's going to happen. But again,
the ability within that team is just so much more solid, isn't it? And I think when we're talking about best practices, I think one of the things I would sort of say from an input point of view there is, well, what made that a best practice? Probably because you sat back and evaluated what made that a best practice, what was different from where you were, so you can constantly sort of tweak those areas that aren't yet in best practice. You can sort of then aspire to, okay, what would make this a best practice, and what are the steps then in which to bring those things all into a line. If everything was functioning at that best practice level, what would you need to do? And then it would be taking those actionable steps, isn't it? So for me, that would actually be part of the best practice, is actually evaluating those whole best practice pieces, and, you know, learning how then to spot how you bring all those things into that best practice principle.
I think, you know, I'm going to use a word that I think you like now. First of all, you've got to notice that it's best practice.
Yeah,
you've got to notice it.
That's it. Yeah,
you know, because you're on the hamster wheel. You're on the hamster wheel, and there's so many good things that happen every single day, but a lot of the time they get missed.
Yeah,
because it's just taken for what they are. So that, you know, we've talked about the importance of evaluating and celebrating, you know, these really big wins that happen every single day. And by doing that, by noticing, then you have that ability to go, well, hang on a minute, we're onto something here. But then equally going into a different area, you know, staying on this working together theme, best practice theme, is everybody pulling equal weight? Because again, you know, I've seen so many dysfunctional sales teams where the person who sits at the top of the pile doesn't have to do the cleaning up. Too important for that. Why do I have to do that? I've got customers to phone and this, that, the other, and they get this. Well, hang on a minute. That from a team bonding perspective, that is just like so divisive. But I've seen that time and time again. Equally, I've seen managers over the years again working together. Talk about totally neg out the vast majority of your sales team. You've got somebody who sells best part of, like, let's say that the average person sells 15 in this particular industry, whatever it is. This person constantly hits 20. Can't remember the last time they hit 15, but we go into the new month giving them a target of 15. Why? But then equally, we give the new starter a target of 15 because that's what we expect from you, a minimum of 15. Well, hang on a minute. No, give them a target of 10 or 5, and actually give your top performer a target of 20 that they're capable of, because actually that might drive them on again to get even better. And now we're working together. Yes, and what we're not actually doing is, think about staff churn. How many people leave positions, not because they don't have the ability, not because we recruited the wrong person, but because we've handled the person incorrectly, because we've set them too high a level of achievement too early, and not challenge those people who have been doing the job for 5 or 10 years to actually perform at the level that they're capable of performing. And the knock-on effect is we've got a revolving chair over there because we don't work together, and we set ourselves up to fail, because the one thing that most departments will always do is set the bar every month. What is it we're aiming for? What the time? And if those aren't set fairly, if they're not set credibly, that filters into this working together piece, because what you're doing is you're just creating a team that's completely fragmented right from day one.
Fragmented, I like that word.
Join us next week for episode 16, Working Together Part 2.